My first encounter with Boris Fuller began with a single, misguided press of the gas pedal. Through the driver's window of the black G-Wagon ahead, a long, slender hand extended outward, a thin cigarette delicately pinched between two fingers. The ash at its tip trembled, breaking off and swirling into the air. A man driving a beast like a G-Wagon, smoking something so refined? I stared, captivated, not noticing that the car in front had begun to brake. By the time I registered it, the distance between us had all but vanished. Panic surged. My foot slammed down, on the gas. With a deafening roar, my Ford crashed into the rear of that black G-Wagon in a kiss of twisted metal and adrenaline. The impact rattled through my entire chest. Then came a knock at my window. "Hey, you all right?" I turned and looked up, into a face carved from winter itself. Boris Fuller. That day, I made two mistakes. I mistook the gas for the brake. And I mistook fear for falling in love. Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. I'm fine. I rushed out of the car to apologize. Only when he straightened up did I realize how tall he was, broad shoulders, long legs, dressed head to toe in black, tactical boots under black jeans, a windbreaker, and a face so sharply defined it looked like it could cut glass. Dangerously good-looking. "I'm really sorry." I kept apologizing over and over. He had only stopped because a herd of sheep had crossed the road. I, on the other hand, had let myself be distracted by the sight of that hand holding a slim cigarette outside the G-Wagon window. I called my insurance company and took full responsibility. My Ford was dead on the spot, engine kaput. His G-Wagon only had a shallow dent on the back bumper, some scraped paint, nothing major. It didn't seem like he planned to get it fixed right away. Gathering my courage, I asked the man who looked like he absolutely wouldn't be interested in helping, "My car's busted, and the insurance people won't get here for a while. Could you maybe give me a ride?" I was fully prepared to be turned down. After all, I'd rear-ended him. But he looked me up and down for a second and said, "Sure." "Where are you going?" he asked once the car started moving. I glanced over. "I'm on a post-grad road trip. I plan to drive wherever the road takes me and stop wherever I want to rest." "No plan." "Nope." He gave me a sidelong glance that made me feel like some clueless kid. So I quickly added, "I'm a grad student, by the way." "Impressive," he said, utterly deadpan. The patronizing vibe only got stronger. I crossed my arms and fell silent, sulking for reasons I didn't quite understand. The car grew quiet, until he spoke again. "First time in the Himalayas?" I blinked. "Not really. I've been here before, but this is my first time driving myself." "You bring oxygen tanks?" "No. I figured I could just buy some in town." Another sideways glance. This one was laced with exasperation. "What?" I blinked at him again. He sighed, reached for the cigarette box on the dashboard, and lit one. The thin stick dangled between his lips as he muttered, "Lucky me." Picked up a little deity. He took a deep drag and exhaled a smoke ring, which the wind immediately scattered. I watched his face through the fading haze. Even while cracking jokes, he didn't seem all that amused. Somewhere along the drive, we exchanged names. He took me into town to buy oxygen tanks, 10 of them. I stared. "You get altitude sickness that bad?" He shot me a look that could have sliced through glass. I was pretty sure it meant, "You idiot." But soon I was grateful. I started getting symptoms: dizziness, nausea, breathless, and woozy. He handed me a tank and set it up for me. Too weak to speak, I just nodded and started inhaling the sweet, sweet O2. As he restarted the car, he said, "I'm heading to Pokhara. There'll be buses and car rentals there. You can head to other spots from there." I gathered my strength to ask, "Are you climbing the Himalayan peaks?" "Yeah." I looked at Boris Fuller's profile, heart suddenly thumping. "I want to climb it too. Bro, take me with you?" He didn't say yes. But he didn't say no either. So I took it as a yes. We booked a homestay in Pokhara. He seemed familiar with the area, chatting easily with the local guide. That night, we had the local specialty for dinner. The taste was interesting. Not bad, just weird. I didn't have much of an appetite. We stayed in rooms next to each other. That night, I spiked a fever. The next morning, Boris knocked and, when I didn't answer, got the innkeeper to unlock my door. I was burning up, brain pounding, ears aching. When he pulled me up, I whimpered, "My ears hurt." Somewhere in the haze, I remember him making me take fever meds and ibuprofen. I slept like the dead. He stayed and looked after me the whole day, delaying his plans to summit the mountain. Luckily, by dawn the next day, I was miraculously healed. I knocked excitedly on his door. "Good morning." He opened it just a crack, dressed in a fitted black cashmere turtleneck. Wide shoulders, narrow waist. God, why is this man allowed to look this good? I swallowed discreetly and slipped inside. "I'm all better. I can go climb the mountain now." "You sure you don't want to rest another day?" "Nope." He turned to grab his jacket. "Did you shower the first night?" "What? I know not to do that. I just wiped down with a towel." He stared at me for a long beat, then said, "You were a good student, huh?" I straightened a bit, proud. "Yeah, I did all right." He gave a snort of laughter and flicked me lightly on the forehead as he passed. "High scores, low instincts." My heart slammed against my ribs. That flick? Straight to the chest. It took me a full 5 seconds to recover and scramble after him. As we prepped to set off, I followed him confidently. "Today, I'm gonna destroy the guide." I ended up clutching Boris Fuller's thigh, unable to take another step. A proud eagle turned into a whimpering pug. Altitude plus physical exertion had completely wiped me out. Boris looked down at me sprawled out on the snow and told the guide, "Let's rest." Then he handed over a cigarette. They both lit up beside me, puffing away like it was a picnic. I looked up at Boris's jawline, so sharp it could cut the wind. How did he still have the lung power to smoke? My eyes became a viewfinder. Snowy peaks, blue skies, clouds, smoke curling into shapes the wind pulled apart. And Boris Fuller, right in the middle of it all. His eyes carried something tender and melancholic, like melting snow. Holy, why was he sad? Who in the world would dare break his heart? Eventually, he and the guide dragged me to the summit, one arm over each of their shoulders. I won't lie. It was kind of amazing. On the way down, they looked after me. Once we hit base camp, we switched to horses. I didn't know how to ride. Boris rode with me. He sat behind me, arms reaching around to hold the reins, like wrapping me in a quiet embrace. We crossed alpine meadows and streams. From the top of the mountain, we rode down into spring. After leaving the Himalayas, we hit the road again. "Where to now?" I asked, following him without a second thought. "Nowhere. Wherever we end up," he said. That surprised me. "So you didn't plan anything either?" I laughed. Then I added more softly, "But I like this." "This?" he asked. I smiled, eyes crinkling. This feeling of being on the road. Of being free. That night, we didn't make it to a town. We slept in the car. Pulled over at the roadside, he built a fire. I cupped a mug of hot tea, waiting for the instant noodles to finish soaking. Staring into the flames, I asked, "You've been here before, right? Why come back alone?" The firelight danced across his face. And my heart flickered with it. "To clear my head," he said. "Oh," I said, sipping my tea. "You look like someone nursing a broken heart." He raised a brow. "That obvious?" I nodded. "Whoever hurt you must have been a fool. I, for one, would never let you down." He let out a low chuckle. Firelight on a beautiful face. It only made him harder to look away from. As if bewitched, I slowly leaned toward him. I stopped when my face was just inches from his. Gave him 3 seconds. When he didn't move away, I leaned in all the way. Our lips met. The night wind of the Himalayas smelled of wild grass, flowers, and Boris Fuller. I kissed him awkwardly, unskilled and clumsy. He didn't push me away, nor did he respond. Until I bit him. Then something in him snapped. Like a wolf roused from slumber. His fingers tangled in my hair, pressing the back of my head forward as he took control. We stumbled from the fire to the back seat of his G-Wagon. My brain was spinning. My heart was racing. Some small sliver of sanity made me ask breathlessly, "Do you have one?" Because not having one would be troublesome. I cursed myself. Who would have expected a wild encounter like this? But then he slid one hand down my waist. The other flipped open the center console and pulled out a small black packet. He tore it open with his teeth. Shit. So hot I almost had a nosebleed. The night was dark, quiet, and feral. We followed Route 214 into Shangri-La, saw Moon Bay, visited Phalai Temple, crossed the water highway toward Everest. By day, we drifted with no plans. By night, we melted into each other. We talked about everything, from philosophy to nuclear fission, from world politics to what to eat for dinner. In a small town, I bought him an elaborate chain necklace. That night, he wore nothing but the necklace when he held me. His sweat clung to the metal, making the little diamonds shine even brighter. My dopamine spiked like crazy. I thought I had hit the limit, then every second after felt even better than the last. The night we reached Everest, we pitched a tent. After a storm of passion, I lay sprawled on top of him, tracing the tattoo low on his abdomen. What's this design mean? He leaned against the pillow, lighting a cigarette. It's a stylized word, he said. My chest tightened. I looked up, meeting his eyes through the rising smoke. I didn't ask what word it was. His eyes had already told me. Changing the subject, I asked, "Why do you smoke slim cigarettes?" "I'm not allowed?" "It just doesn't match the G-Wagon. It makes you look like someone with a story." He flicked my forehead with those dangerously beautiful fingers. "My ex always smoked slims," he said casually. "Guess I picked up the habit." A bucket of ice water might have had less impact. Oh. Still, I told myself, X means past. Trying to shift the mood, I said, "Let me send you money for this week's meals." In truth, I just wanted an excuse to get his contact info. We'd spent almost 2 weeks together. I still didn't have his number. We never needed it. We'd barely been apart. No need. It wasn't much, he said, ruffling my hair. Everything about him. His clothes, his car, the way he spoke, screamed that he didn't care about money. But I insisted. He looked down at me. I felt like he saw straight through me. Finally, I stepped forward. "Let's exchange WhatsApp. Just to keep in touch." He hesitated, then gave a faint smile. "Stories from the road should stay on the road. Don't you think?" I didn't argue. I kept smiling like nothing was wrong. But I didn't sleep a wink that night. At dawn, I quietly packed my suitcase. It wasn't much. I'd been wearing Boris Fuller's jacket most days anyway. Before he woke, I left alone for Lukla Airport. A deep, dull ache hung over me like fog. Maybe he was right. Roadside romances should stay where they started. What we had was always going to be a wild detour, never a destination. So why did it feel like someone had carved a hole out of my chest? Back home, I took a few days to settle before starting my new job. I joined a biopharmaceutical firm my professor had partnered with. Back in a familiar field. Quite grounded. Like falling back to earth after weeks in the clouds. To welcome me, my professor took me out for dinner. "So," he asked cheerfully, clapping my shoulder, "how was the graduation trip? You've looked a little off since you got back from the Himalayas." I forced a smile. "It was great. Too great, maybe. That's probably why I miss it so much." For the first time, the smile cracked. Just a little. He chuckled. "You used to bury yourself in the lab 24/7. It's good to get out while you're young." He cleared his throat. "And hey, you shouldn't spend all your time around old geezers like me. My son just got back from abroad. Why don't you two meet?" Out of respect, I agreed. And so now, I was sitting by the window in a cafe, staring at the golden ginkgo tree across the street. The wind chimes above the door jingled softly. A tall man appeared in front of me. "Hi, are you Billy Wells?" I stood up quickly. "Yes, that's me." The man smiled brightly. "Philip Harrison. Nice to meet you." Philip Harrison, the son of my professor. My age. Columbia Business School grad. He had the kind of warm energy that came from living abroad too long. "When my dad found out I was gay, he went down a research rabbit hole," Philip said, sipping his coffee. Read every paper. Tried to understand how gay people survive in today's world. He wrinkled his face and dumped sugar into the cup like he was killing something. I chuckled. I tried to act cool, he said, grinning. But honestly, I hate black coffee. My dad was so scared I'd catch some disease from sleeping around, he's been obsessed with finding me a stable partner. I nodded. Mine were kind of the same. I hesitated, then told him the truth. I'm not really looking to date right now. We can start as friends, he said easily. The pace here's different. We'd both crash and burn if we forced it. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. He was easy to talk to. The date wasn't as awkward as I'd feared. When I looked tired, he offered, "Want me to drive you home?" "No need. I'll call a ride." He held up a car key. "Come on, I borrowed my dad's best car for this. Let me show off a little." He was too sincere to turn down. When we arrived at my apartment gate, I unbuckled and thanked him. "No problem," he said, stepping out. Then, out of nowhere, he pulled out a red rose. "Can I hope for a next time?" Philip Harrison had the kind of smile that lit up a room. White teeth, summer energy. Like a breeze off a Hawaiian beach. Completely unlike Boris Fuller. I hesitated. "Sorry. I've been really busy lately." A weak excuse. He caught it, his smile dimming just a little. "Guess I didn't make the cut." He handed me the rose. "Then let this be a goodbye gift." Before I could refuse, he waved and got in the car. I stared at the rose. Then looked up to watch the Mercedes disappear around the corner. I turned to go home. And froze. A black G-Wagon was parked just down the street. My heart stuttered. The driver's side window was down. Boris Fuller sat there, one arm on the window, a slim cigarette between his fingers. Staring straight at me. Through the haze of smoke, Boris Fuller's expression was hard to read. But those calm, obsidian eyes of his, beautiful and dangerous, like Fujian Lake at midnight, made my heart pound just from being looked at. Before I knew it, my feet had carried me toward him. "What are you doing here?" I stopped beside the driver's window, glancing first at the cigarette between his fingers, then up at his face. He stubbed it out in the ashtray and stepped out of the car, leaning casually against the door. He didn't answer my question. Instead, he said, "That rose was already in the seat pocket. There might be a whole stash of them. It's a thing. If the guy likes you enough, he gives you one before you part ways. If you refuse it, no big deal. Either way, he makes an impression. After that, he'll keep talking to you. Ask you out again, purely as friends. You might say no once, maybe twice. But the third time? You'll agree. It's all just a routine." I looked down at the rose in my hand, momentarily stunned. "How do you know all that?" Boris lowered his eyes. He looked like an international student. "I studied abroad too. I guess the playbook hasn't changed." Something in me twisted at those words. "Sounds like you've used those routines yourself." "Figures," I snapped. "You even keep condoms in the center console." The irritation in my tone wasn't just irritation, it was a clumsy attempt to hide how hurt I felt. "What, are you here dropping off your latest date too?" "No," Boris said simply, unfazed by my accusing tone. "I was waiting for you." I blinked. "How did you even know I live here?" "You had your student ID in your documents. And you mentioned the takeout scene near your place once." A strange feeling swept through me. We'd never exchanged personal info. From our scattered chats, it was clear we didn't even live in the same city. And yet, with nothing but a school ID and a comment about takeout, he had found me. In all of New York. "How long did you look for me?" My voice shook before I could steady it. "Not long," Boris said, avoiding my gaze. "Not long. This was New York, not some quiet Himalayan town. Finding someone here with so little information was like fishing in the ocean with bare hands." My throat tightened. "Why did you come?" "To collect the week's worth of meal money." His face was calm, almost lazy. But his features were sharp, quietly dangerous. He didn't smile like Philip Harrison. But if Boris ever seriously wanted to date, he'd probably be even more popular. I gripped my phone. "How much?" "I'll send it now." "$5.20, he said, holding out a payment code. I opened Apple Pay, but realized immediately it wasn't a payment code. It was his WhatsApp. 520. The flush of something, anger maybe, rushed up my chest. Not because he went back on his word, but because, Boris Fuller, how many people have you run this little game on? I knew exactly what this emotion was. Jealousy. If the moon doesn't shine for me, fine. But could it not shine on everyone else either? I turned to leave. I'll give you cash next time. He grabbed my arm. Billy Wells. I spun back, furious. What? He looked exasperated. I haven't used that routine on anyone. Who's gonna believe that? I scoffed. You had condoms in your car. My voice was sharp, accusing. I hadn't even realized what that detail meant until now. He paused, a flicker of discomfort in his eyes. Those were expired. What? They've been in there forever. I forgot about them. Last time I tried to use one, I didn't even check the date. Only realized later they'd probably expired. That was a lot. My heart skipped. Then my brows furrowed. I sneered, mostly out of reflex. And how do I know you're not just making that up? Boris smirked, lifting a brow. Didn't you keep the wrapper? I froze, horrified. You. I couldn't handle it. I turned and ran straight into the apartment complex. How the hell does he know I kept the wrapper? It was supposed to be a little keepsake, a memento of my first time. I tucked it away quietly, thinking no one would ever know. But he knew. My whole body felt like it was on fire. Mortified. Still, once I got home, I couldn't help it. I dug the thing out. Sure enough, 2 months expired. Which meant he wasn't lying. The condom had been there a long time. It wasn't part of some routine. Instead of shame, what I felt first was happiness. Boris Fuller wasn't the type to sleep around. And then, of course, the embarrassment came crashing in. I seriously considered posting online. If I kept the wrapper from my first time with a crush, will he think I'm a freak? I opened my phone. I'd already scanned his WhatsApp earlier. Staring at the deep blue profile icon for way too long, I finally bit the bullet and added him. My toes curled into the floor from sheer secondhand shame. He accepted within seconds. Boris Fuller, you dropped the rose. Boris Fuller, I tossed it. I'll buy you a new one tomorrow. I transferred $520. Recipient has accepted payment. And then? I stared at the screen for a long time. Nothing else came through. Was that really it? Just here to collect his $520? I gnawed at my lip. Tapped his profile. His avatar was clearer when zoomed in. A shot of the Himalayas at night. The mountains and sky blended together, scattered stars twinkling above. I clicked into his moments. My eyes widened. He had posted a screenshot of the $520 payment I sent him. Caption, in pursuit. My face flushed bright red. Seriously? You're chasing me, and still had the nerve to take my money. I smacked my phone face down onto the bed. And flailed. Even the coldest man would lose it if he knew his crush crossed an ocean to find him. The next morning, I woke up and went straight for my phone. 2 new messages. One from Philip Harrison, the other from Boris. I politely declined Philip's invitation. Then I opened Boris's. Boris Fuller, bought you a new rose. Can I buy you dinner too? I couldn't stop smiling. But I typed carefully, I'm busy during the day, sorting materials. He got the hint right away. Boris Fuller, how about dinner? Me, that works. That evening, just outside the complex, his G-Wagon was parked exactly where it had been the day before. Boris was leaning against the hood. A girl approached him, clearly trying to strike up a conversation. Too far to hear what they were saying, but I noticed he didn't take out his phone. The girl left, disappointed. I walked up and raised an eyebrow. Wow, popular much? He nodded. Still not as much as you. I almost grinned. God, it's been 2 weeks and you're saying stuff like that now? He opened the door for me. Once I got in, he handed me a bouquet of pink roses. Thank you, I said softly, cheeks heating. It felt like we'd gone back to how we were in the Himalayas. Boris was attentive, but never overbearing. The easy calm he carried made it impossible not to relax around him. After dinner, I took him for a walk along the Bund. We walked for a long time. Eventually, I built up the nerve to ask, "Why did you come back for me? You rejected me." He stopped walking and looked at me. The twilight glow over the river turned the skyline dreamy and blue. The Oriental Pearl Tower lit up behind him. Skyscrapers filled the horizon. And yet, he looked like he belonged to another world. "I changed my mind," he said quietly. His eyes were complicated, like a storm just before it breaks. "I thought about it. A lot. Whether I should come find you. If I didn't, you'd probably remember me at my best. But the real me, I'm not as put together as you imagined." "But you still came," I said, looking at Boris Fuller. I didn't realize it at the time, but my eyes must have been sparkling when I said that. He stared at me, stunned, then reached out with the back of his hand and lightly touched my cheek. The gesture was so gentle, like he was afraid I'd break. "Yeah," he murmured, "I came. Because I couldn't bear it. And I was afraid you'd leave without saying goodbye, and that I'd regret it." My chest tightened. I swallowed and tried to joke. "I was really upset, you know. I've always been the one to turn people down. This was the first time I made the first move, and the first time I got rejected." I stared at him. "So, what are you going to do to make it up to me?" Boris laughed, nervously for once. "Spend the rest of my life making it up to you? Ugh." I rubbed my arms in fake disgust. "Where'd you learn to be so cheesy?" He paused for a beat, then said almost too honestly, "My ex." My smile faltered. I thought of the slim cigarettes, the tattoo on his lower abdomen. He must have really loved that ex. But at least he was being honest. That was something. So I said, "Way too cheesy. And let me guess, the whole playbook? He taught you that too." Boris lowered his head. His expression darkened. "Yeah." No matter how sharp or successful Boris Fuller looked on the outside, his appearance, his skills, his background, there were always moments, little glimpses, where I saw something vulnerable flash across his face. Even with all his height and composure, there was a quiet sort of fragility to him. "I don't like routines," I said gently. "If you're going to chase me, don't use them." Then I reached out and took his hand. The fleeting blue of twilight faded as the bund lit up with nighttime energy. Later, Boris drove me home. I waved to the building guard and asked him to let Boris's car through. When we pulled up outside my building, I cleared my throat. "So, do you want to come up? Maybe have some water?" Immediately, I felt embarrassed, staring at the roses in my arms. We were both adults, and we got along very well. But Boris only shook his head. "No. Go ahead. Let me know when you're safely upstairs." I looked up, confused. He reached over and gently patted my head. "If I'm not using routines anymore, then I'm not going up tonight." "Billy," he said softly, "back in the Himalayas? I wasn't in a good place. I let myself get carried away. We could have had a more thoughtful beginning. That was on me." I had no idea what to say. "You're pulling the slow burn card now? After all we've already done?" And the worst part was, I actually liked it. Who doesn't want to be treated like they matter? "Are you staying at a hotel tonight?" I asked. "I'm heading back to Boston. I'll come see you again next weekend." He leaned down and kissed me lightly on the forehead. When I got upstairs, I messaged Boris to let him know I was home. I watched his G-Wagon slowly drive off. But my heart wouldn't settle. After a brief mental war, I took a long shower, nearly half an hour. I came out feeling off. Going from hot and heavy to pure and precious was a shift my body wasn't quite prepared for. Just seeing Boris made my mind wander. Before I knew it, I had my phone out, searching for biotech companies in Boston. I wasn't even past my probation period at work, and I was already thinking of transferring. It was Boston. Better career outlook, right? And that's how it began, our long-distance relationship. He was the one chasing me, technically. Every weekend, Boris would ride that cursed long-haul train from Boston to New York. He said he was always the only one in his train car, no laptop on the tray table. His G-Wagon would be parked right at the train station. Every time. The station parking lot probably raked in a fortune just from him. "Don't come this weekend. I'm out of town for work." That was the message I sent him. Truth was, I was already at the station. This time, I was going to Boston. Surprise visit. Because love shouldn't be one-sided, even if he was the one doing the chasing. Mostly it was because he had morals. If he dared wear that chest chain again and flirt just a little, I'd probably throw myself at him on the spot. I knew where he lived. Knew where he worked. I had a bouquet delivered and waited outside his office. 2 hours later, he finally emerged. I stood, smiling, just about to wave, when I saw someone else walk toward him. A man with long, shoulder-length hair. Beautiful. Lazy charm written all over his face. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. That was Boris Fuller's ex. They exchanged a few words. Boris nodded. The two of them headed toward the cafe. I hesitated, then followed. I found a booth next to theirs, out of sight. The cafe was cozy and private. They couldn't see me, but I could hear bits of their conversation. I ordered a coffee to meet the minimum spend and focused all my attention on the voices behind me. Logically, I knew this was wrong. Invasive. Disrespectful. Emotionally? Screw it. Boris's voice was cold. What do you want? The long-haired man's voice was softer, almost sweet. Can't I have dinner with you now that I'm back? I'm busy. You were working hedge funds on Wall Street and still made time to have dinner with me in Manhattan. Now that you're back, you're telling me you're busier. Boris paused, then replied, My time doesn't belong to you anymore. I broke up with Alan, the man said, ignoring him. He cheated on me, brought the other guy back to our place. And so began the monologue. 30 minutes straight. Complaints, bitterness, self-pity. And Boris listened. He didn't interrupt. Just let him talk. And that's what chilled me the most. Boris wasn't the type to care about gossip. Did he still care about his ex? I looked down at the bouquet beside me. Warm orange roses. I'd imagined all kinds of reactions. Would he be happy? Surprised? Maybe even kiss me? But now, I wasn't sure I'd even hand it over. The man's voice got softer, more intimate. Boris, if you're willing to listen to all this, it means you still have feelings for me. I know you. If you didn't care, you wouldn't waste your time. We still have a chance, right? My jaw clenched. Then Boris spoke, and my whole body stilled. My time is valuable, he said coolly. But hearing your tragic little story, it's cathartic. I don't mind wasting time on that. What did you say? The man gasped. Boris was ice cold. A tone I'd never heard from him before. Did you think about how I felt when you cheated? Why the hell would you think I'd feel bad that someone cheated on you? Was I too nice to you back then? Is that where you got this overconfidence from? Was I pathetic? I was stunned. Boris Fuller had been cheated on? Who would cheat on him? Rage roared up my spine. You don't mean that, the man said, voice cracking. You haven't moved on. I know, you still have my name tattooed on your body. Boris, I had it removed. What? It's gone. And don't come looking for me again. My boyfriend wouldn't like it. He stood up and walked out. I was too slow to escape first. He passed by me, then stopped. Turned around. And stared, stunned. Shit. Busted. I lifted the bouquet awkwardly, tried to smile. A surprise. The long-haired man stood too, narrowing his eyes at me with a look of disdain. This your new boyfriend? Watching your every move like a stalker. Billy, Boris started, instinctively pulling me behind him. Protective. Like hell. I pushed his hand away and shoved the bouquet into his arms. Hold this. Then I turned to the overly pretty ex and smiled sweetly. Yep. I track Boris Fuller 24/7. Because my last boyfriend was a cheating bastard. So now I've got trauma. Cheating bastards? Not even dogs would want them. The man's expression twisted. I sneered, pressing on. Don't come sniffing around anymore. If you're that bored, go visit a hospital. The infectious disease center or a psych ward would love your company. You're insane. And before he could get another word in, I grabbed Boris, still frozen, and stormed out. Only once we were well away from the cafe did I slow down. First time I ever cussed someone out like that. Weirdly, kind of exhilarating. I pressed a hand to my chest and glanced at Boris, who had been uncharacteristically silent the whole time. "So," I asked, "back to your place? How are we getting there?" "I drove," he said finally, dazed. "Car's in the office garage." "Take me there," I said, grabbing Boris Fuller by the arm and practically shoving him forward. My urgency was written all over me. He noticed, confused. "Is there something you want to ask me?" "Yes." "Now move." We reached the underground parking lot, and the moment I spotted his car, I didn't even look at the model. I yanked open the back door and pushed him inside. Then I followed. The door slammed shut with a loud thud. I immediately started pulling at his suit jacket. "Billy!" Boris was clearly caught off guard, but he didn't try to stop me. I yanked up the hem of his shirt, unbuckled his belt, pulled his underwear halfway down, just enough to expose his lower abdomen, flushed faintly red. "You really had the tattoo removed?" My voice was hoarse, fingertips brushing his warm skin. "Yeah," he said quietly, pulling me closer, his arm around my waist. "I also quit smoking." He was half lying across the back seat, and I climbed onto his lap, hugging him tightly. His hand stroked the back of my head. "Weren't you on a business trip? What are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise you." "Are you nervous? Or is it because you weren't planning on getting back with your ex and now you feel guilty?" He fell silent. Then finally he said, "You heard everything?" "Yeah." "Do you think I'm awful?" he asked with a self-deprecating laugh. I sat up abruptly, incredulous. "What?" He avoided my eyes, his voice low. "You see? I'm not that chill or cool. I'm petty, sarcastic." I cupped his face in my hands and made him look at me. "Didn't you hear what I said to that guy back there? I'm just as petty and sarcastic, if not worse." If it had been me he cheated on, I would have poured an entire cup of coffee over his head, slowly in circles, just to make sure every strand of hair got a taste. Boris chuckled, the gloom lifting from his face. But I stayed serious. "You're a good man. I didn't fall for you because you were smooth or cool. It wasn't about your lines or your charm. It was the oxygen tank you handed me, ready to go. It was you staying up with me all night when I was dizzy with altitude sickness, taking care of me, climbing the Himalayas with someone you barely knew. I love you because you're just good. Really, really good." He went quiet, brushing his fingers across my cheek. "You're the good one. Can't argue with that." I stared at his face, then slowly looked down at his pale, toned stomach. "Is this a new car?" I asked. "A Rolls-Royce Cullinan? Pretty spacious. Want to test it out?" He grinned, pinching my cheek. I'd been bugging him to let me drive the G-Wagon during our time in the Himalayas. I nodded seriously. "Gotta try it." He smiled, helped me off his lap. I had already unbuckled my belt. "You stock up yet?" I asked. It took him a second. Then his eyes darkened, voice rough. "Not yet." "Then don't bother. Just come in." I reached for his shirt and started undoing the buttons, fast. And then stopped. Right over his heart, there was a brand new tattoo. I traced it slowly, reading aloud, 2025.8.1. "That's the day we met." "Yeah," he murmured. Boris took my hand and kissed it. "This one's for life. Never getting it removed." I nearly lost it. You have no idea. Science gays have zero resistance to men who are this quietly soft and devastatingly romantic. The new car was spacious. Good suspension. Didn't stay clean for long, though. Guess I'll have to pay him back, with a boyfriend. That night, after taking me home, Boris said, "My job's been transferred to New York." "You requested it?" "New York's a big city, sure, but his company's headquarters is in Boston." "Yeah. There's a lot of financial growth here." "Seriously?" He looked at me for a moment, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. "No," he admitted. "I didn't want to do long distance. I want my boyfriend watching me 24/7. My smile threatened to split my face. "Well, your boyfriend approves." Our story started with me stepping too hard on the gas and rear-ending him. On Route G214, somewhere in the Himalayas, where the wind was light and the clouds were slow. That day I did two things right. I hit the gas instead of the brakes. And I got horny for Boris Fuller on sight. Boris Fuller's epilogue. The first time I saw Billy Wells, I thought, he looks like someone in academia. That quiet, bookish energy. The kind of guy who's lived too long in a lab, whose eyes haven't been touched by the world's grime. Eyes like that make it hard to say no. So I gave him a ride. Every year, I retrace the Himalayan route I once walked with Elvin Ray. To this day, I'm not sure if I kept going back out of love, or because I couldn't stomach the loss. Elvin was my first love. Beautiful, dramatic, full of flair. Exactly what you'd expect from an art student. I put up with a lot. His tantrums, his extravagance. Paid for it all. Growing up under strict parents, I admired that kind of freedom in him. That romantic, rule-breaking spirit. When I caught him cheating, it wasn't heartbreak I felt, it was fury. Elvin said I was cold. That I played by the rules too much. That I couldn't give him the love he wanted. It wasn't just my heart that broke that day. It was my worldview. I didn't want to see him again. Not even live in the same city. So I quit my job in New York and came back home. Meeting Billy Wells wasn't perfect timing. That part of the year, I'm always at my worst. But he was like a flickering flame. Bright and alive. I didn't know if getting close to him would warm me or burn me. But I let him push. Those 14 days with him were the freest I've ever felt. Always on the road, a road that felt endless. Everything unknown, everything thrilling, everything that made my chest tighten. It was like catching the wind. His pheromones nearly drowned me. But every road ends, no matter how slow I drive. Mount Everest was our final stop. When Billy asked for my contact info, his eyes sparkled, and all I felt was fear. For 2 weeks, he'd seen the version of me I built to impress. I knew I wasn't really that chill, that romantic. I followed rules. I wasn't good at love. I was scared he'd find that out. So I said no. The moment his eyes dimmed, I regretted it. But regret's even more pathetic. That night, I couldn't sleep. And when I woke up, he was gone. It hurt more than the breakup with Elvin. I didn't even think. I extended my leave, hopped on a train, and went straight to New York. All I had was a sliver of info he'd let slip during conversations. It took me half a month to find him. By then, he was already going on dates. With someone who looked eerily like Elvin. I ruined it. That date. Even though I hate to admit it, I was petty. I knew what Billy liked. I played to it, exaggerated it. I wanted all of his attention. I didn't want him looking at anyone else. But I didn't expect him to come to Boston. To hear my conversation with Elvin. That version of me, the one I least wanted him to see, was exposed fully, right there. And yet, he stood in front of me. Defended me. How could someone so pure, so good even exist? Cleaner than the snow on the summit. I've been to the Himalayas 7 times. But only on the 7th did the sunlight finally find me. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.